time is it? What time is it? What time is it? Right now!
Welcome to Talking About Sports Extra from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. We're talking extra NASCAR and NASCAR playoffs with Alan Dietz, NASCAR producer, William Wilson from Ultra Motorsports and William Wilson Clothing, and Jeff Taylor, formerly of TNN Motorsports. Alan, glad you're here. And for the person who may not be tuning in, there seems to be a growing number of those people. What are the playoffs? Kind of breakdown for the layman's. Got a phone call. We're waiting on Greg Gaulding to call in, by the way, from BK Racing and Premium Motorsports. But tell us what's going on with the playoffs, briefly.
Me.
Yeah. Alan, if you don't mind.
Well, I think
glad you're
now,
here, by the way.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Well, we're at it now. You know, we're into the 10-race playoff starting this weekend at Chicago, and you know, a lot of things have changed with stage racing this year and how the points have been tabulated. And you look at Martin Truex Jr. and you've got these playoff points which you can establish throughout the season during those stages, and then obviously with race wins and things like that, and you carry those stage points with you all the way until that final race at Homestead. And I'll tell you, Martin Truex Jr., he's just based off of what he did in the regular season, is in good shape right now.
Oh, yeah, he can almost miss a race and still be good. He's got so many. You know what it reminds me of? The year Matt Kenseth just ran away with the championship. And all he had to do was just basically start the race, and he had it won. It's almost like one of those things that's padded so far into it.
Except the bad part now is, Jeff, is that as opposed to where Matt Kenseth didn't have to run those last two races or whatever in 2003.
Right.
Yep.
Now you do all of this stuff through 35 races.
And now, and the interesting part is, between the 16 drivers, it's 50 points separating them right now. And it just is, one slip up, and that 50 can go away real quick. And the consistency, but think about Martin Truex real quick. His consistency throughout this entire year, I don't care if it's been half-mile road course, mile and a half, super speedways, that team has been consistent the entire year.
But the one problem is that you go to Homestead and that's all gone. So
all
if
gone.
he makes it to Homestead, and then you got those other three drivers. And I've said this many times before, and this is what I really don't like about that race at Homestead, frankly, is say you had a problem on the first lap and all the points contenders were wiped out in it, destroyed their cars. They could finish 37th, 38th, 39th, and 40th,
and somebody
the champion is who's 37th.
In addition to that, I just want to mention a couple of things. Danica Patrick, no sponsor. Richard Petty Motorsports, that is kind of questionable right now. What are we looking at? Is Danica Patrick
That's not questionable.
done?
That's done. Smithfield's gone. They're going to Stuart Haas.
It's fried like bacon right now. But was Danica Patrick going to be in a car, in a NASCAR, in a Cup car?
I think William and I were talking just a minute ago as we got this show going, and he brought up a good point. Personally, I don't think she'll be back in a car, but if the right sponsor comes along and wants her in that car, because she can still draw attention, whether she, you can debate her driving skills all day long, but, I think what it's going to boil down to is some team is going to get some sponsor who will say, we want her. And that's to me the only way it happens.
Right, and because she's not really going to be a high-valued free agent, you can get her relatively inexpensively from a sponsor
I'd rather have
standpoint.
Greg Gaulding driving my car. Just me.
Well, I'm not arguing that, but and as much as I love Gray, Gray's a friend of mine. I love Gray. Gray's not going to get people looking at him like Danica's going to get people looking at her.
Literally.
It's like Dale Jr. The rookie Dale Jr. and Matt Kenseth came in together. Matt won Rookie of the Year. Even when Matt won the championship, all the advertisements for the next season all had Dale Jr. There weren't even advertisements with Matt Kenseth in it as the reigning champion. At the end of the day, it comes down to, from a business standpoint, who's going to get me seen.
At the end of the day, I think there's two ways Danica's going to be in NASCAR next year. She's either going to be sitting on Ricky Stenhouse's pit ball.
Wait a minute.
As Mrs. Stenhouse?
That could be.
Whatever. She may get a sponsor to be able to run the Xfinity Series, which might not be bad for her. But I'll tell you what, I would not be totally shocked if you don't see her go back to IndyCar racing.
That was my other thought. That
would be huge. It would be a loss for NASCAR, but it would be huge for the sport of motorsports in general. Because I tell you, I think she could go back over to IndyCar. She's got a legitimate chance to win the Indy 500.
Yeah, I mean, she led the 500. She just ran out of gas that one year. She just ran a fuel mixture too thin.
If
and she just ran out of gas.
NASCAR, I mean, can you have? I mean, the show must go on. That's we always hear. Richard Petty, the 43. They have two charters, I believe. Could they merge with some team like, I'll just say JTG Racing, JTG Doherty Racing? Could they go, or are they gone?
Well,
unless there's money there.
You lose Smithfield as your sponsor, you lose Eric Almirola. And talking to a few people in the NASCAR community, I mean, there is a legitimate chance that Petty Enterprises is not on the track next year, and I don't even know what that looks like if the 43 wasn't there.
It would be horrible, but I can tell you there's a couple of things. You hear Darrell Wallace Jr.'s name, Bubba Wallace, going into that 43. I believe Nickelodeon sponsoring him in
Chicago?
the Xfinity race this weekend. So I think there could be something to that as far as the 43 goes. And frankly, I'll tell you another thing that some friends of mine kind of inside the deal have told me too. Just like a lot of these teams, just like Roush, just like Richard Childress, there's an investor in Richard Petty Motorsports, and that investor's got a lot of money. And as long as that investor wants to keep racing, they're going to keep racing whether or not they got a sponsor or not. It's just a matter of whether or not he wants to spend his own money or not.
Well, you see, that's what Gene Haas did with Kurt Busch. He wanted Kurt Busch. He put his own name on the car.
All right, guys, we've got William Wilson, your good friend on the phone, Greg Gaulding, who I interviewed at your celebrity golf tournament. Greg, glad you're with us here on Talking About Sports Extra.
Yeah, man. Thank y'all for having me. I appreciate it.
Greg, we're talking NASCAR Extra. What car are you in this weekend in Chicago?
I'm in the 55 car. I'm actually running the truck race Friday night, tomorrow night in the 15, and then I'm in the 55 Cup car for Sunday's Cup race.
Awesome. And we're just talking sponsorship with Richard Petty and Danica Patrick. And I said before you came on the air, I'd like to see you maybe get better equipment. No disparagement against your current sponsors, but I know you can drive, and William has been saying that all along. And what are you looking for maybe for next year?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot going on with silly season. With the news about Danica Patrick, obviously Richard Petty Motorsports, and just to name a few. It's been kind of wild the past few weeks, but everything's kind of going smooth for us. We're just trying to dig deep and work hard and get everything ready to go for next year. But it's been a pretty good deal with Premium Motorsports. Jay Robson, the owner, he's done a lot for me already this season, and we're going to try to get our program better for next season. We're just trying some new things, new setups. We've got some new people that have come in and to enhance our program. So I definitely love running the Cup Series, and I want to stay in the Cup Series. So we're working towards to doing that, but definitely a lot of hard work, throughout this season and this off season to make everything perfect and right. But we're willing to work it out, and hopefully we can get ready to rock and roll full time next year in Cup.
Well, Gray, we've got Jeff Taylor, longtime motorsports reporter, and Alan Dietz, NASCAR producer, in addition to myself and William Wilson here. JT, do you have something?
Yeah, I do. Hey, Gray, glad you could join us. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Hey, let me ask you this. We kick off the playoff series in Chicago. Can you talk a little bit about that track? It's new on the series, one of the newer ones. What makes Chicagoland so tough to get around?
Hey, sorry about that. You were cutting out on me. I can't really hear you that well.
Okay.
He was saying the Chicagoland is a new track per se. What makes? How can you get around that track, and why? And just kind of talk about Chicagoland.
Yeah, Chicagoland it's sort of like, it's not too much, too different compared to the mile and a half on the schedule, but it's a little bit different with the back straightaway being curved, and it's a lot more bumpy than most mile and a halves, because the mile and a half that we go to, nowadays are usually been repaved, but Chicagoland has still got a big bump getting into turn one. I've only seen the bump from what people have told me in the videos I've been able to watch over the past couple of days, but I've never been here before in any vehicle. I'm about to practice the truck here in an hour or so it should be fun to get to learn the track and kind of get some points where I need to be before I get in the Cup car tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to it. It seems like a fun little racetrack. You can run the outside, you can run against the wall, the middle, the bottom, just kind of wherever your car is handling the best to keep that momentum up once you get over that bump. So I'm looking forward to it. I know a lot going on with the NASCAR playoffs. I'm sure that'll be fun to watch for the fans. So it's going to be a good weekend.
Hey, Gray. I know, but during the course of the season, you've had a number of car numbers you've raced in this season. So it's sometimes been kind of like, where on earth is Greg Gaulding this week? Which cars are you going to be in? Are you going to be in one solid number the rest of the season, or are you going to still be kind of going between cars?
Yeah, it's definitely had a few numbers over the course of this year, but it's kind of, a lot of people don't realize it all depends on the non-charter, the chartered car, whatever sponsor, and that goes with that number. That's why I've been changing numbers between like the 15 to 55 mostly this season. But I'll probably stick with the 55 the majority of the rest of the season. Thanks to Jay Robinson, and he's got some partners that keep that 55 going, and I'm just excited to be behind the wheel for him and his team. So you can definitely look for me in the 55 car more the rest of the season.
Hey, Gray, it's Alan. I got to call a lot of your races when you were driving past super late models. What would you say the hardest thing has been making that step from short track racing up into super speedways? I know you took the step into K&N cars and trucks for a little bit, but if you had any advice you could give 11 or 12-year-old Gray, what would it be that maybe surprised you a little bit?
That's a good question. It's to get to this level, no matter where you start, where you're from, it's hard. This business is a very tough business. You have to grind it out every single day, and even the series you run in. So, growing up racing, the legend cars, the Bandoleros, and then moving up to the past super late model series, I got to give credit to, Kevin Harvick and, the people that moved me up so early. It's kind of funny, when I was in the super late model, I was only 12 years old. I was testing at 11 years old, so I moved very fast. But I credit a lot of my abilities to being able to move up and drive such a fast race car on some of the best short tracks across the country, which is really awesome. But if I could give any advice to a young, man or gal, starting in the sport, wanting to be the next, Jimmy Johnson, Denny Hamlin, just to name a few names. You just got to work hard. And another thing is, it's really not about the racing anymore. It is and it isn't. You got to go out there and perform and win and show that you can go out there and do your job. But also, it's very important to do the off-track things for the sponsors, the interviews, things like that. So I felt like I was very educated as a young man from my father and a couple people that I've kind of looked up to, knowing that it's very important to do the off-track things just as much as the on-track. So it's like I said, it's just a tough business for any young man or gal out there trying to make it this level, especially from the short tracks. But you just got to work hard and try to keep moving up at a very fast pace. Like I feel like I credit a lot of my ability to moving up so quick. I moved up. Every time I was able to move up, I moved up. And I felt like that really benefited me, knowing that I had to drive a different vehicle every season with better and bigger and older competition. So that's probably the best advice I have to give them.
Well, Greg, we're definitely I'm pulling for you from Richmond, Virginia, Southside Speedway. You're from Colonial Heights. So
shout out Chesterfield County. And
well, not so much Chesterfield County. I'm a Northside guy, Henrico High. But no offense, Greg. Hey, Greg, what do you think? How do the first four races set up? Who would you think are some early first stage guys? Who do you see maybe having some success, maybe even winning the first couple races, or who's going to go through in the first segment of the playoffs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's hard to say. It's as far as the Cup guys go and the playoffs and how that works. I mean, it's hard not to go with, a guy like Martin Truex Jr. He's been fast every single week, no matter what the racetrack is, road course, short track, and the great thing for them is the mile and a halves are pretty much the entire chase format. So many mile and a halves, then you got a couple super speedways and a couple short tracks. But, to me, I look at the bigger teams to advance. I look at maybe the guys being on the bubble that are going to have maybe a tough time advancing. Might be the 3 car of Austin Dillon, the 5 of Casey Kane. Guys that, might have struggled a little bit on the mile and a half, knowing that we got Chicagoland, New Hampshire, and then we go to Dover. But I feel like those guys are sort of on the bubble. And maybe Jamie McMurray, but you're going to see the same guys at the front these next few weeks. You're going to see the 48. They always turn it on when it comes to playoff time. The 78's obviously been lights out, and then Kyle Larson. Their program has really been stepped up this season, and he's been doing a great job behind the wheel also. So I'm really excited about looking forward to watching the playoffs kind of play out. But when you're racing at this level, these guys are the best in business. So don't be surprised if you do see an upset, because you can always throw rain or fuel mileage. There's just so many things that go into winning a cup race and being able to advance to that next round. So I won't be surprised if there's an upset, but the odds of that happening are pretty slim, I think.
Well, great. We know you got sponsor commitments to get to. I'm a big fan of yours. I know William Wilson is, and we definitely want you to be at the Clother Classic next year. Maybe, hopefully, I'll get to play with you. Maybe you may not think that way, but William's always disparaging my golf game. I hear Rusty's. Don't listen to him. Just because he played with me doesn't mean what he's telling you. He actually saw.
Gray, the boys' game is garbage. If he was a race car, he'd be starting park if he was a race car.
What you say? I'm Truck Series, or am I late models? What am I?
No, you would be starting park. Wouldn't matter what the series is. You wouldn't be there long enough for people to see you.
Killing me, Gray. Thank you so much for coming on Talking About Sports Extra, and we'll catch you on the racetrack next time.
Sounds good, man. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, that's Gray Gaulding. We're glad to have him here on Talking About Sports Extra. We're coming back. We still have more Talking About Sports Extra right after
this. We're talking about sports on AM.
We're talking about sports at ADSN. I don't know how to say that.
We're talking about
sports in, oh God, I forgot.
ADSN.
What is it?
ADSN.
ADSN, okay.
Yep.
We're talking about sports.
Talking about sports.
We're talking about sports.
Talking sports.
Talking about sports.
We're talking about sports on ADSN.
Talking about sports on ADSN.
Welcome back to Talking About Sports Extra from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Alan Dietz, Jeff Taylor, William Wilson, and Alan. The field is set as we're looking at the entire playoff field. Any surprises in or out? And Chase Elliott gets in without a win.
Yeah, I don't think Chase making it is honestly that big a surprise as well as they've ran the last couple of years. Ryan Newman always seems to make it, but
I don't get that one. Yeah,
he won a race, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why he's in.
And it's he gets in on a fuel mileage deal, but the biggest surprise is definitely probably Austin Dillon.
I'd agree.
And Casey Kane. I mean, I'm sorry, but Casey Kane has ran absolutely horrendous for about the last 3 years, and he wins the Brickyard, but.
Pretty big race.
It's a huge race, but I think he'll be the first one out.
I think Stenhouse will be the first one out. Stenhouse was the one that surprised me, to be honest with you. Casey's run better than he's shown. They'll be competitive. He got caught up in a lot of people's wrecks in the last few years of stuff that had nothing to do with him. And that's the unfortunate thing about NASCAR is you can have a great car be running well and get caught behind someone else who blows a tire. You get caught in that wreck, and now you're done, and you finish 37th.
And I think when it comes to one of the biggest names out, I'm looking at Clint Boyer. When he jumped in that 14 car, that Smoke was driving, my first thought was he's going to win a race, and he's going to be a one to watch out for. And I don't know that that's come to fruition as much, and maybe he just needs another year with him or so. But I would have thought Clint would have been right there.
But don't forget Joey Logano. That encumbered win at Richmond in the spring, which, for any of us that grew up going to short tracks.
That's true.
You wouldn't have won that race. You'd finished last. They'd have took it all together.
Right.
And I think NASCAR needs to seriously look into that, because when you got a guy like Joey Logano that obviously whatever they were doing in that car after that encumbered win at Richmond, it had a pretty big impact on what they were doing.
Yep.
Yeah, they never ran as well again after that.
They never ran as well as they did, and you look how, he's been right in the mix.
He's a good driver.
Yeah. He's been right in the mix the last few years going into Homestead. But does this benefit his teammate Brad Keselowski? Does it benefit maybe a Ryan Blaney, which is a team car
right.
of sorts to Penske, having that other car out there. You absolutely know going to Talladega, if Brad Keselowski makes that second round, Joey Logano, all he's going to be concerned with is either pushing that 21 or that 2 to a win.
Right.
Yeah. And the same thing with Ricky Stenhouse. I agree with you that it's a surprise that he's in, but he won 2 races. And they were both on restrictor plate tracks. So if he can get by this first round and he can get to that round that's got Talladega in it, he
may advance.
Yeah,
but those are big ifs, though.
I agree with that.
But I can't believe Matt Kenseth's been running away. I mean, Toyota's been running well. You look at how well. It's almost like I know we got that partnership with JGR. It's almost like they gave Martin Truex all of Matt Kenseth's cars.
I would get them back. If I'm Tom Gibbs, I would ask them back.
I mean, because he ran so well, and like Matt's one of those guys you don't hear about it. He typically runs like Matt, like Truex did. You may not see him. Then at the end, he pops up.
But he's in a lame duck year.
And I'm wondering how much is he wanting to prove this last, in this playoff series, going, hey, I'm going out a champion. You can do what you want at, Joe Gibbs Racing. You can fill my slot with Eric Jones, but I'm ready to go racing.
I think he's got that in him. But do you honestly think that he's getting the motors and chassis that Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch are? And furthermore, if you want to jump ahead just a little bit, when you get to that last race at Homestead, say Martin Truex Jr. is the points leader, and he's got a JGR crew and JGR motors. Okay, well, what if Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin are
I was about to say, what if they're in there with it?
I know, and to me, do you honestly think that when Joe Gibbs was coaching the Redskins, they would loan some players to the Eagles to help them out?
Especially the Cowboys.
Oh, no way, the Cowboys. That's why I brought up the Eagles.
Hail to the Redskins.
Yeah, but you never know. Money talks in NASCAR. That's the big thing with it.
Money talks.
Money talks, and Kenseth is leaving. So I think if it comes to this, they're going to give one of the guys that's going to still be there next year, or with the partnerships that's bringing the money in. I'll tell you what I'm loving to see is Kurt Busch is turning it around now. After winning the Daytona 500, he just had, and I've been friends with Kurt for a long time, he just did not have the season I expected them to have coming off that win. But they found some of these last 2 or 3 races. They found some speed for a change.
But and he's not guared to be back. With Stuart Haas, so we don't know what's going on there in terms of that. So,
but I think
it's interesting.
But I think he'll be one of those guys that's kind of sought after because he's run well there. He's made the chase every year. I mean, he's past champion. I think if they don't keep him, there'll be a bidding war to an extent with him because he's turned his life around.
I mean, they got to have 40 cars. And there's got to be some sponsorship dollars going somewhere. Is all the money concentrated in a dozen cars, and then you got 38?
Yes.
Or 28 or 20 starting
all the money is
competitive cars?
All the money is concentrated in about 3 teams, 3 or 4 teams.
Are we making picks yet?
No.
Not yet. Okay.
Dale Jr.'s not in. So there's where some money is, and he's not in.
Now, his dad is I know how I feel about it. Is dad surprised you that he's not in?
Absolutely not. Because here's the deal. I think he came back this year.
Pull one of these little cautions at Martinsville where there's a handkerchief on the court.
Listen, he came back this year to do one thing, and that was to say goodbye to the fans.
A farewell tour. Absolutely.
When have you seen him? I could see him running 10th and 5th through 10th and kind of hanging in there. But when you're running 20th and 25th, and it doesn't seem to be any kind of you need to get to the front. You want to win a race. You want to make the. It's just like
he's going to win Talladega, even though he's not in the chase.
No, he'll be running 20th.
I don't know.
I don't know that he. I don't. Does he want to risk it? I mean, I think he.
If he wins a race, it's going to be Talladega.
That would be the one he would win. I would agree.
That's why I bring it up. I mean, I think he. I guess Ricky Stenhouse lately, but. You think restrictor plates?
Right.
I'm thinking Kezo, Michael.
What has he done this year on the restrictor plates?
Well,
lately.
Yeah, ain't done much this year at all.
He hasn't done a whole lot.
When you go back and you look at Dale Jr.'s career this year, looks a lot from a competitiveness standpoint to like his last year at DEI.
Exactly.
But the difference is I'm kind of. I think one of you guys might have mentioned it whenever we were all fair, but it's almost like he's driving not to get hurt.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, he's got he's got a wife now. He's looking forward to another career.
And listen,
he didn't want to get hurt.
He was hurt.
He's concerned with CTE. And he's already said he's going to donate his brain to medical science when it's that time.
I mean, when you look at last year, when's the last time you saw anybody other than Steve Park have a wreck and was out that long when he got back behind the wheel?
Yeah. Jerry Nader.
I mean, and Steve was never the same. You talk to Steve
Jerry
now,
Nader
he's not the same.
Ernie Irvins, to me, was never the same.
Yeah, but he was out for a long time for it to just be a concussion.
I can promise you that when you look at race car drivers throughout the years, and Richard Petty, I think, broke his neck in like 1978.
My man,
Darrell Waltrip broke his leg
Bobby Allison
practicing.
Yeah, when he wrecked it.
But I'm talking about guys that came back, and when they had a major injury like that, a lot of them never were the same.
Right.
If you start, if you're driving not to get hurt, you might as well just get out the race.
All right.
When you're racing, there's one thing you can't be. One thing. You cannot race scared. There's a reason there's no speedometers in it. They don't want to know how fast they're going.
It's like Days of Thunder. Cold trickle.
Yeah, you can't race.
It's like playing football. It's like playing football. You can't have those kids go slow, You got to go full speed.
We were down at NASCAR headquarters. Kevin Tolber was there. We talked to a lot of the drivers. We're going to come back with some of the NASCAR drivers and what they're thinking about right here on Talking About Sports Extra.
We're talking about sports on AM.
We're talking about sports at ADSN. I don't know how to say that.
We're talking about
sports in, oh God, I forgot.
ADSN.
What is it?
ADSN.
ADSN, okay.
Yeah.
We're talking about sports.
Talking about sports.
We're talking about sports.
Talking sports. Talking about sports. We're talking about sports on ADSN.
Talking about sports on ADSN.
I don't feel like it's a huge safety net, even though we have 53 extra points. I think there's still room for error. Talladega is always the wild card race. You never know what can happen there. And for it to be in the playoffs is just crazy, stressful. And you just try to do all you can to stay alive in that one. And then for us, I think for our team, Martinsville is probably the second one, which has never been our greatest racetrack. I feel like we've gotten better there. We've been competitive, led some laps here and there, won a stage there this year. But it's still not a place we're super confident in.
Welcome back to Talking About Sports Extra from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Alan Dietz, William Wilson, Jeff Taylor. We just heard from Martin Truex. To me, the guy who has done it. He's the guy. He's the lead dog this year. To me, the chase is his to take.
Well, I think he said in that soundbite if they've got one weakness, or I know I heard at some point yesterday.
They don't have many.
They felt like Martinsville might be a little bit of a weakness for him. Short tracks in general, but I mean, look how good he ran. I mean, he should have won the race at
Richmond. Yep.
I mean, he's won 5 races this year, but he could have won 8 or 9. I mean, he should have won at Darlington. He should have won at Richmond. He should have won at Michigan.
Watkins Glen.
Cautions you were talking about.
Those phantom cautions.
Yeah.
Wasn't he leading the road course of Watkins Glen?
He was very competitive.
He was either that or Sonoma. Wasn't he leading?
He hasn't not been competitive this season.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
And here's the kicker. Guess who won Chicago last year to start it?
Yeah.
Truex.
Yeah. But playoffs are a different thing. And no matter what sport you're in, when you get to the playoffs, that cream rises to the top, and experience matters.
Does this what you're getting to? He's never won the title. Maybe he's going to get tight. Not in the car sense, but in like emotionally tight.
No, I don't think that. No, I think once the flag goes green, those guys do what they've been doing their whole life. They race. But there's just certain things. Experience just matters. Where you look at a Matt Kenseth who's won a championship, Jimmy who's won 7 of them. Those hit. Something about Chad Knaus and Jimmy Johnson, it's almost like once they know they're in, they just test the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. They test the rest of the season to get ready for the playoffs. It wouldn't surprise me. And let's not forget, Ryan Newman won 8 races one year and didn't win a championship.
Kyle Busch is strong. He won the title last year, and because he put it up during the playoffs last year.
Yeah. So just
Kyle Larson is a guy who I think he's been on the cusp of greatness all season long, and if it wasn't for Truex, we'd be talking about Kyle Larson being in first place in the guy right now.
Yeah. He's got 4 wins.
A lot of seconds.
A lot of seconds coming off the win at Richmond.
And I'll tell you the other thing about Kyle Larson is and I mentioned those late cautions at Michigan and Richmond, if you've got a caution that comes out with 5 laps to go and he's first to fourth, I think he's going to be your guy to beat.
He is to the Cup Series what Ron Hornaday used to be in the Truck Series. Will, as you probably unfortunately saw, Chip Ganassi Racing. Does Felix Sabates, your friend Will, is he still involved somehow?
Yeah, he's still involved. Yeah, he's part owner of that team.
I love Felix. What a great guy. And I, you know, I'm not trying to pick any favorites in here, but I'd like to see a guy like Felix Sabates on the victory stand in Homestead.
Yeah, for what Felix has done for the sport and who Felix is for the sport and the kind of personality he brings to the sport.
Self-made man like yourself.
Yeah, you can't replace that. There's no notebook, there's no playbook for that.
What you see is the real Felix Sabates, the guy who came with nothing, built everything himself, and the stories he can tell.
Yeah, Felix is unapologetically Felix. But I think with Kyle Lawson, though, I think Kyle, he's had some great races, his great run. He's going to be great. I don't know if he's still ready yet to make that turn.
Well, like Alan said, though, if it came down to a restart, he has been kind of the king of restarts this year. It's been crazy, those last 4 or 5 restarts and stuff, and he's, I don't know, he's just been stellar that way, and I could certainly, if it came down to that in Homestead, game on.
And the thing that plays well for Martin Truex Jr. and for Kyle Larson, and it's what's played well for Jimmy Johnson, say, for the last 10 years, is that 5 of these last races are on mile-and-a-half racetracks. That's where they have been so good at. I mean, the style of racetracks play into their hand.
I'm not a fan of the mile-and-a-half. I like the 1 milers. I like Richmond. I like Dover. And I'm glad. And next year we'll see the Charlotte Motor Speedway, the Roval, if you will.
I cannot wait.
And that's great. You need more diversity in it. I mean, there's no sense that, you know, it's just like, you know, if you can't count a guy like Jimmy Johnson out. I don't think he's ran well this year, and he didn't really run great last year. But kind of where I'm going with this is, you know, in 2011, Tony Stewart was horrible during the regular season. He barely made it in. And they hit on something, and I've asked some people about this, and they said it's some geometry in the front end of the car. And he won 5 of the last 10 races. After about the first 2 races, you're going to see where Jimmy Johnson is. Jimmy Johnson's got a shot at this thing. If you got any sleepers, Matt Kenseth, you're going to see it.
If I'm correct, Alan, I mean, when he won number 7, he didn't have a really stellar year when he won the 7, did he?
If you get in, you got a shot.
And he was
the worst car of the 4 at Homestead, and they basically took each other out.
Right, exactly, and yet he won. So it's like,
what are some potential game changers as we move forward in the chase?
Talladega
playoffs. Besides Talladega, Martinsville, I think, is going to be a game changer.
You know, the pit crews.
Big time.
It's all going to be big.
You know, give them credit. God bless them, because you know what, and I think. Kevin Harvick was talking about it a little bit yesterday, where he talked about teamwork and how, you know, listen, I can drive the car, I can drive the wheels off of it, but unless that crew over the wall and those guys back in the shop, they bring the right, and I know William can talk about it. You know, you can talk about pressure and playoffs on the drivers. Hey, talk about the crew.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you, people do not realize when you're in contention. I remember when we lost the championship by 4 1,000ths of a second when Ted spun the tires on a restart at Homestead. If we had from
Ted Musgrave,
if we had 20 more feet, we'd have won that race. You hold that all season, and that stays with you. When you get to the championship, when you get to the playoffs, and you know every pit stop matters. You don't have next race. We may not have next pit stop because if you don't get all your lugs tight.
Yeah,
if I drop the jack too quick, and all of a sudden you got to come back to the end at a place like Dover, where you can't just plow through the field if you got the best car. That could cost you. That could take you out.
Well, Will, you mentioned the drivers maybe getting a little nervous or uptight. What about the guys in the crew? The jack man, the gas man, the tire changers?
Those are the guys that I would think.
What about these guys? Are they getting nervous at one of those points where you have to win or get a very good finish and move on? Or if you're in Homestead and it's coming down with 10 to go and it's coming into a pit stop, and that's going to determine everything.
Well, see, but you got to remember, for us, we only have an 11-second lifespan anyway. Because for us, every pit stop matters. Because if you have a bad pit early in the race.
But at Homestead with 10 to go.
Right, but I'm telling you, Homestead 10 to go or the first race of the playoffs. Because if we don't do good at the beginning, Homestead will never matter.
I agree. I think it's going to be from the get-go.
Every one of them matters. One doesn't matter more than the other. Do you get a little bit more anxious? It's almost like playing golf.
You got the greatest round ever, and you get to your last hole. Like if I par this,
I'm usually out of it by then, so I'm relaxed.
And we've seen teams change. We've seen owners switch pit crews when they get to the playoff.
It's already happened.
Oh, yeah.
Daniel Suarez pit crew is going to pit Kyle Busch.
That's right.
They changed it this week. And, Kyle Busch has won a couple of races, but you think about it, and you mentioned Dover. He was leading the race at Dover, leaves the pits, and the left rear tire falls off. And how many times have we seen this year? I think with Kyle, we've seen it with several teams, but Kyle Busch in particular, this stuff would loose
lug nuts.
And you cannot afford that in the chase.
Yeah. Well, look how many times Kevin Harvick has come in leading the race, second, third, and his pit crew kills him.
Yep.
And he's coming out 7th, 8th, 9th.
And he lets you know it, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
he lets you know it.
You can't do it. There's nothing sadder, because I've been there, where you have a bad pit stop, and the first thing we do after a pit stop, we go back, we go right around the pit box, and we watch that stop. And when you know you're the guy that screwed it up, because when I was on pit crew, when I was on pit road, we had 7 guys. There's only 6 now. But your screw up is so big.
It's like the
so
place
broad.
kicker that misses
the 23 yards.
It really
Blair
is.
Walsh.
Well, I'm sure you never let the team down. And we're going to come back. We're going to a break now, but when we come back, we're going to talk Chicagoland and maybe some strategy moving forward in the playoffs. This is Talking About Sports Extra.
What would I do if I could celebrate like an NFL player?
Well, my celebrations have been known to be pretty wild already. I took my whole team sliding through the grass at Charlotte.
I don't celebrate much.
And then you know how they grab the ball and like they spin it or they spike it? I've always wanted to like grab my helmet and do that. Like, woo.
Well, there'd be no dancing for sure because I can't dance.
Well, I'm not a dancer, so I wouldn't be dancing. That's for sure.
I'm not a good dancer, but I would dance if I won the championship. Absolutely.
Will I twerk? No. I know that's what you were thinking.
I can dance. I can do it all. So if we're at Homestead, I promise you I'll put on a really good show.
I like doing my donuts, and that's about it.
I mean, the biggest celebration is the smoky burnouts and just wearing out the tires, creating as much smoke as possible.
DW used to do the icky shuffle and then grab the helmet and he'd do like one of these and
we're okay with that.
Yeah, and I think those guys in the NFL, some of their celebrations they got moves that I couldn't do.
I'm not as good as those NFL guys. They got all kinds of moves.
When you get to that top level of sports, it's an accomplishment to not only score a touchdown, but to win a game and to let those guys have some fun with it, because that's really what sports is all about.
I'd go dance on the top of everybody's hauler with the trophy.
You know what? I think I'm probably just going to try to get a kiss and a hug from my wife and my daughter and drink a beer too.
It takes the cake, right? I mean, how could you top that?
Welcome back to Talking About Sports Extra. You just heard the guys talking about their celebration. Will, when you guys won the Truck Series title at Ultra Motorsports, was there any helmet throwing, burnouts? How'd you guys celebrate?
Well, I mean, some of it I don't even remember. It was so surreal. I don't even remember parts of it.
You don't drink and party or anything like that, but maybe some of the other guys did. Maybe they.
Oh yeah, I mean there was some adult.
There was some Budweiser going. There was some Budweiser.
There was jubilation, and at the end of the night, some dribblation. But
it's fantastic.
But again, it was sweet to win, but you got to understand, we lost one 2 years earlier. That was right there. We had a great season, and we had our last pit stop was flawless, and we spun the tires. So we held that for 2 years. So it was almost like redemption for us on top of it.
But you still hold that.
Yeah.
That's what you've talked more about than winning it.
People don't
the one that you lost.
Because I've only one time in my life I've ever felt pain like that ever in my life, and that was this year. So, I mean, it's just, you cannot put into words. Like, they are literally the pain of the loss,
the agony of defeat,
and the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat are literally equal to.
So you think you should have another one of those big championship rings?
No, I don't. It's a team effort.
Okay. Yep. I mean, I'm saying you as a team, everyone on your team.
No, we don't. Ted is part of the team. If I'd have dropped the jack too soon, but Change would have done something, we got what we got. The one thing about racing, for the most part, you had what you earned.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about the system as a whole, and kind of how does someone understand obviously you win, you move on. But what are some of the maybe the intricacies, Alan, of the system itself?
Well, I tried to explain this to my dad in January when we went fishing. We did go fishing in January. That's why we were talking. That's why we were talking about the points.
I don't hunt. You keep talking about squirrel hunting. I don't hunt.
I thought everybody squirrel hunts in Arkansas.
We discussed this. I don't hunt at all.
Okay, so you?
I'm not against hunting, but it's not my thing.
Back to racing.
Did you catch any fish?
No, that's why we were talking about the points. We've done it before, but I mean, we weren't that day. But anyway, you know, there's some of that we've learned through 26 races this year. We've kind of got the gist of what this segment racing's about. We've got the gist of what playoff points are about, and those are the things that are still going to be important here in the chase. It's all about these points, and if you don't win a race and you don't accumulate those playoff points, you're going to be gone. And like I said, I think personally, I may be wrong about it, but I think it's pretty easy to see the guys that are probably going to be going first, based on what we've seen already this year.
I think the interesting part, too, with the playoff, and you've mentioned points like a lot today, and we all have.
Which we did in the last few years.
Right, and it just becomes, this year more than ever, it's curious to see what the talk will be like, or the calls that are made in the pits and everything else, as opposed to we're running 10th or 15th, we can make this change and come out and win the race, or something could go horribly wrong and we could end up 20th or 30th. So I'd love to know the mentality of, am I points racing or am I winning the race? And where's that fine line going to be? And how tough is it as a driver not to win and have your crew chief going, hey, let's think about this for a second.
Yeah, but when you look at the way the points are with the stages, though, it's almost like you points race and stage race at the same time now, because you win that stage, that's 10 points.
Right.
No, you win 2 stages and finish third. You had a pretty good point stage.
Right.
But you still had to earn those.
Which is where Martin Truex has killed everybody.
Exactly. Yes, those stages, man.
Now, do you think, the stages, the system, is this all for better ratings and more attendance? Because it seems like all of the above are down.
Well, the ratings haven't up, neither is the attendance. I think that was their hope.
I think ratings are down since World Sports Enterprises wasn't carrying the race. That's just my opinion.
TNN back in the day.
That's a fact.
But I think that's the gist of it. Is let's figure out some way of getting the viewership back and getting the attendance back. And I don't know that that's worked.
I think NASCAR's got to figure out one or the other. You either try to get attendance or you try to get the viewers. I think it's smart money to try to get the viewers.
Agreed.
And to do that,
Agreed.
You've got to shorten these races. You got to catch up to millennials.
You got to shorten the season, too.
And you brought up a good point there, William. You mentioned the word millennials. They got to figure out a way. My kids, I've got 19, 16, and 13. Ain't none of them going to watch a race. It's not a draw for them anymore. And it may not be, we'll watch the last 10 laps of the Daytona 500. Just because we want to see, what goes down.
My kids will see a race because I'm watching it, and they still know more about Jeff Gordon than anything that's
absolutely.
going on now, which is not good.
Absolutely.
Me and my buddies, we still talk more about Dale Earnhardt and Bill Elliott.
Yep, exactly. Or Terry Labonte and him at Bristol.
I know it's.
Yeah, because they've Jimmy Johnson the whole field. And I know disrespect to Jimmy Johnson. He's a great guy. He's a nice guy. But Jimmy's not going to say anything controversial.
No.
He's not going to say anything that will get him in trouble. He's not going to give you that sound bite that you could use for bulletin board material. He's going to say all the right things, even if he's upset.
But when Kyle Busch does the exact opposite of what you said, the fans complain about that.
Other drivers' fans shop at Lowe's.
Right.
But as Dale Senior told
Michael Jordan analogy.
I got you.
But as Dale Senior told Jeff Gordon, said you want him either cheering for you or you want him booing for you. You just don't want him to be quiet.
Right. With Jimmy Johnson, they're pretty quiet.
Yeah, Jimmy is the most accomplished champion no one cares about.
Right. That's the absolute truth. Everybody loved Richard Petty. Everybody hated Dale Earnhardt.
I love Dale Earnhardt. Those are my two favorite guys. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhart. They're the guys.
But they were relevant.
Right. I mentioned shortening the season, and I think.
Why is that?
If you look at it, when I was growing up, granted, you didn't have all the coverage that you got now with Race Hub and NASCAR America and this pre-race show and that pre-race show and this show. That's not a bad thing. Those are good things. But you hungered for the races, and there were 28 or 29. So you had 2 or 3 or 4 off weeks during the year.
Absolutely.
I mean, I remember in November, whenever the season got over with at Atlanta, I didn't know what I was going to do for the next 2 months, which says a lot about my social life as a teenager.
But you were waiting for that tested at Daytona.
I love
in February.
We got that now.
Speed Weeks was Christmas.
I mean,
I love long races. I love the long season, but I mean, I hear everything you guys are saying. So should the season be over like right around the beginning of football season?
Well, I think if you make the racing better and keep people interested, the season doesn't seem as long. If you shorten these races and stop this lap car just pull over to the side, because now you got that animosity. Now you got this guy who's mad because the 95 car didn't move out of his way.
You don't like the Coke 600.
Then Jamie McMurray caught up with him, and now they're racing for the win. And now where he would have ran away with it in a normal circumstance, now Jamie McMurray may use that lap car as a pit car now.
I mean,
pass it for a win.
Maybe is it the 1.5 mile track?
I'm gonna tell you what right now. To me, and I'm gonna go back to we're pretty. We're old. Hey, North Wilkesboro's, Rockingham's. When we got away, we got all these mile and a halves that just are cookie cutters and Riverside. When Darrell Waltrip and Bobby Allison used to go at it at Riverside,
Tim Richmond.
But when when you take away the Rockinghams and the North Wilkesboro's, and you want to give Bristol or Martinsville one race, the short tracks. When they listen, I grew up in Richmond, the Fairgrounds Raceway. Now listen, I don't mind the short track at Richmond. But I love the fairgrounds, man. When it was a half mile, and that Rubbin's racing, and when you get rid of some of those short tracks, and you're getting into these mile and a halves and 2 miles, no, it
doesn't beat the Pop Secret 400 or the Holly Farms.
You're daggone right.
You're right. Wilkesboro and Rockingham.
But the millennials don't know about that's great for us. I don't remember seeing races in North Wilkesboro. That was before me.
I got something older. Sorry.
So but I didn't grow up watching racing.
Right.
I went to a race, decided I want to do it, and next year I was there.
But maybe if they had something like that had character, that maybe catch the attention of the millennials.
No, because we're glamorizing, we're memorializing a time past, which is great for us. But millennials don't care about that because they don't know anything about it. You're speaking Greek to them right now. So with them, you got to excite them. The racing itself has to be good. If they double the football season, people will still not be upset. The players would, but people you're waiting for your team that year because you wait for it. The football is good. The games are good. The side stories are good. The animosity is good. NASCAR now, it's just the same three or four guys win, the same 2 or 3 teams win. And
you sanitize it. We could bring back the Pontiac Excitement 400. We could do that. That's excitement. But should there
what was exciting about it?
Well, it was at Richmond.
Night race.
But is more fights, more controversy. That sells, right?
Well, listen. Here's this too. Think about this.
Kyle Busch
nothing in the world.
Logano's pits, and it was on.
Nothing in the world. Like I was sitting here thinking about the other day. You mean to tell me that Hendrick Motorsports is going to have Jimmy Johnson, Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, and William Byron? Where does that excite anybody or give it any type of? You've gone from Earnhardt Jr. and Casey Kane and Jeff. Listen, I like them.
Yeah.
But what are
Eric
they?
Jones is overrated.
And here's the interesting part. And this is going to come across a really wrong way. We can talk about Danica Patrick as much as we want. There are 20 other drivers on that circuit that aren't as good as she is. They're not as relevant. No, I mean, you think about it, the relevance
of the needle.
Huh?
They don't move the needle.
They don't.
All right, we've got the Chicagoland coming up, plus strategies and who's going to win it all. We'll find out more right here on Talking About Sports Extra.
Everybody's in a little bit different spot, I guess you could say, as to how they approach it and what they think.
3 races is very difficult to have your season swing one way or another.
Your success in the championship run is probably going to come down to your ability to execute and perform at the mile and a half tracks.
It's going to depend really on who you're racing against to get in.
Welcome back to Talking About Sports Extra from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. William Wilson, Jeff Taylor, Alan Dietz, Chicagoland Strategy. Brett Keselowski, Kevin Harvick are repeat winners at Chicagoland. They have a good feel for the venue. Does this almost guarantee that one of them will dominate and possibly gain a key playoff momentum, or will Martin Truex and Kyle Larson continue to move up?
I don't think Martin's going to win it. And Martin is a great guy. Martin's a nice guy. No one's upset with him.
Chicago or the championship?
Chicago.
I think he can win Chicago. I don't think he's going to win the championship. But I think he can win Chicago.
I think Chicago, if you look at the last 4 winners, you've got Truex, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, and Matt Kenseth are the last 4 winners. And the interesting part about Chicagoland is they only go there once a year.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting deal to have that kick off the chase. They only go there once a year.
Similar track to Kansas, Charlotte, Texas, Las Vegas.
Right.
It's similar, but it's a lot more different. The pit boxes in all 4 of those tracks are completely different.
Right. But you're bringing notes from a year ago.
Yeah.
You're not bringing notes from earlier in the year. So to me, that's kind of the wild card there, is that you're only going there once a year and you kick off the chase with that race.
I think Kyle Larson going, it fits that mold of some of those 1.5-mile, 2-mile racetracks that he's good at, but running that high side too. He's so good at California and Michigan at, and that's what you're going to see this weekend at Chicago. I think he'll start it out with a win myself.
He's High Groove Harry all over again.
That's right.
Before we get to the Xfinity Series,
I study.
Can we do picks? Are we going to do picks?
Before we get to Xfinity and Truck Series, give me a Chicagoland winner and or the overall playoff winner, JT.
I'm going to give you Kyle Larson wins Chicago, and I say J Squared wins number 8, Jimmy Johnson. They're going to flip the switch. He's going to win at Dover. He's going to win at Dover, the 3rd race of this segment, and that's going to propel him to number 8.
I hope not. Will, who you got?
I'm going to go on a limb, and I don't even know why I'm going to say this, but just something my gut just tells me. Chase Elliott's going to get this win in Chicago.
I can see that.
I think a lot of pressure's off him because he made the chase. I think he's going to get that win.
Who wins overall? Chase? Chase wins the chase?
Oh, absolutely not.
All right, he wins this week, but who you got overall? Come on, Will.
I think I go with Jimmy.
Oh, God. Both of you guys will kill me. Alan, who you got?
I think I will go, like I said, with Kyle Larson for Chicago, Martin Truex for the chase. But I will give a dark horse, and William mentioned it earlier. They really turned their act around in the last month because of a test at Chicago, and that's Kurt Busch. I'm telling you, I was at Darlington. You look at how he ran at Richmond, and he said it all went back to this test at Chicago about a month ago. I think they're going to surprise some people in the playoff.
I would be tickled to death because Kurt's my guy. I would be tickled to death.
There would be some partying. There would be some
partying. I would be a happy
man. Racing.
All right, well, guys, that's going to be a wrap for our first edition of Talking About Sports Extra. We're going to have some more NASCAR discussion on a future Talking About Sports Extra. For our friends at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill, Kevin Tolbert. For Jeff Taylor, William Wilson, Alan Dietz, I'm Kevin Casey. So long for now.
You should have talking about racing. They're talking about sport, just talking about racing.
Well, right now.